Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our monthly 1ClickFactory self-provisioning webinar. So May edition of webinar. So welcome back. And today we'll be presenting some new exciting stuff that we have built and we are planning to build in the future. So with that, let's get started. So as usual, our webinars are on the second Wednesday of each month with some rare exceptions. So the next webinar we plan to have on 9th of June. So mark your calendars, mark 9th of June as usual, second Wednesday of June, the regular time. So mark your calendars for the June webinar. So today, as usual, we want to have the webinar as interactive as possible. So if you see the chat box, you can click there and ask questions. We'll be taking the questions either during the call or at the end in the Q&A session, depending on the question. So if you have a question, don't wait until the very end. Just post the question over there, and they will be saved, and we'll answer questions that we'll see in this Q&A chat box. So as usual, my ask, don't be shy and ask questions and clarify, because this is a good time to do that. So today's agenda is pretty much regular. We'll present what's new we have released, or to be frankly, we'll still be releasing this month, because this month's feature release is a little bit delayed because we want to release really the best quality possible. So we will be releasing the new features into our portal actually next week, but we will be already giving a sneak peek for you what is that we are releasing in the new functionality. Then, as usual, we will have a look into what's in the lab. What are the next feature releases we plan to release in the coming month? And as well, we will end with a question and answer, starting from FAQ, from most questions that we have experienced during the last months. And as well, any questions that you may have. And again, just a reminder, don't forget to put your questions into the Q&A chat. So with that, let's continue on what's new part. So one of the news that we have actually somehow failed to communicate to you last month, although it was actually done last month, it's ISO 27001 certification. So ISO 27001, for those who are not familiar, is the Information Security Management System International Standard Organization Certificate. So we have been certified since last April, and this April we have we were recertified. Actually, on March 31st, we were recertified, because this is the procedure that needs to be done every year. Because of course, security is the super important stuff, and there are always some updates. So it needs to be recertified. So we can assure you that our service is ISO 27001 recertified. So the certificate is fully valid. So this is something that have been done already last month, but somehow we are communicating with you that only now. The second piece on the what's new slide is the improved 4NAF integration. So we know it's not actually our feature release; it's the release of 4NAF team. So we have been informed that 4NAF team have made some changes in the background of their application, so that it would be easier to integrate 4NAF with when hosted in self-provisioning platform of 1ClickFactory. So the credit goes to 4NAF team. I think there's an article in 4NAF blog or in 4NAF knowledge base. What have they done exactly? But basically, that what they have done is to have an easier and more smooth integration when hosted on our platform. So 4NAF is a great partner for us, and I'm sure for many of you, been used by many of the partners around the world as well on our platform. So we are glad that mutual efforts were done to run this this solution on our platform easier. Then Business Central 2021 release wave 1. I think last time we have introduced from our point of view what are the new features in Business Central 18 that was about to be released in our platform. So it was released publicly by Microsoft, but it was not yet released on our platform. So during the past few weeks, we have made sure that BC 18 is on our platform. So you can upgrade your platforms to the BC 18 if needed, or you can using our functionality, or you can basically provision new customers, new installations on this newest version already. Now, when it comes to the Business Central 18 or the latest CUs, they actually haven't been released yet. And there's a funny post from Freddy Christiansen, which says, I don't know why are they held up, but it is always for a good reason, not something we like to do. So that's a funny quote from Freddy. So we're still waiting for the CUs to be released, and once they are released, we'll make sure that we will test them and release it on our platform as well as soon as possible. Usually it's within the week, maybe even faster. So if you miss the latest CUs in May, well, we miss them too. As long as they are released, we'll be releasing on our platform too. Okay, now the big things. So the big thing that actually fits into only one line is the static IP addresses. So I'm glad to announce that with the new platform improvement release next week, we plan to convert all the dynamic IPs on our platform into static IPs. So some of you have been paying for this service to have the static IP previously on 1ClickFactory self-provisioning platform. So we've done a lot of research and development, and with the help of Microsoft, we will be able to ensure that all the IPs in our platform are static, and there will be no extra charges for that. So for those who have been, ordering this service of static IPs, so from the June invoice, we will not be invoicing you. There will be no extra charge for the static IPs, and you would be able to enjoy those static IPs instead of dynamic IPs. That would also help us to improve the network performance in some cases. So some of you may also experience the better performance of network performance on the installations that you may have in those machines that are actually compatible with that. So again, I'm glad to announce static IPs free for every partner starting from the next week. And again, June invoices will be a little bit lower for some of you, which is always, I think, a good thing. So yeah, I think that's quite a big news that fits into one line. Then the last, but also not least, we will be releasing additional monitoring alerts next week. Again, next week, the feature release will be done live next week. Now it's still in the testing phase. So last month, Algirdas was presenting our first release of alerts functionality on our platform. So if you remember, we have been demoing you some alerts functionality like expired license, invalid license, scheduled job suspended, or stopped server instance, or something like that. So those were the first alerts that we have released last month. So for those who haven't been present on the webinar last month, surely you can watch the webinar recording of last month to make sure that, well, you know what we have released back then. But this time, or next week, we will be releasing additional alerts that would probably be even more interesting and beneficial for some of you. So with that, I think I will have to pass mic to Algirdas, who will present this new additional monitoring alerts functionality. We'll explain what it is, and basically we'll demo that. But before going into explanation, I would like also to open a short poll for the participants of today's webinar. And could you please run the poll? So basically the poll, we wanted to understand whether you have used the alerts functionality that we have released last month, and whether you know about that, or maybe you know but you haven't tried, or maybe you have tried and found it useful, or maybe you have tried and found it not useful. So could you please submit your vote? And I would like to see what's the, I would say, adaptation progress so far of the new functionality that we have released. Okay, I'll give you like a few moments. All right. So I see that, well, 25% of the respondents don't actually know about this functionality. I would encourage you to look into the last month's webinar recording. If you don't know where to find that, then we'll ask Migle to basically communicate it to you in the chat box. Or you can always ask where's this webinar recording at service@1ClickFactory.com. We even answer these kind of questions where the recordings are stored, so no worries. You can ask pretty much anything in our support system. And as well, Algirdas will show the additional monitoring alerts functionality. So for those who don't know what was the standard alerts functionality, you will basically see what's new. And then 38% have not yet tried this functionality. So I encourage you to try, or I encourage you to try once it's released next week with the additional alert types. And I'm glad to see that 38% have already tried and found it useful. So I hope the new alerts functionality that will be presented by Algirdas now, you will find even more useful then. So again, thanks for using that. Thanks for providing the feedback. And now I pass the mic to Algirdas to continue with explaining what's the new additional monitoring alerts are.
Thank you, Rimvidas. So as promised, we continued working on these monitoring alerts that we showed you last month. So in addition of those standard alert types that we actually had for quite some time on our system, we monitored the invalid licenses, expired licenses, and so on. And now we added 4 new types, which are designed to monitor resources of your application servers. So there are 4 new types of alerts. Those are high CPU usage, high RAM usage, low free disk space, and inactive RDP sessions. Yeah, I will show you a quick demo a bit later how to create and configure these monitoring alerts. But for now, I would like to say a few words about these alert types. So these 4 alert types, these new rules, only these alert types will be a paid service, and you will have to pay monthly as usual for our services, and the price will be €1 per alert per month. So you will be able to find additional pricing details in 1ClickFactory self-provisioning price list in the documents section of our portal next week when we release this feature into our production environment. But for now, yeah. So also these standard alert types that we introduced to you last month that are detecting invalid licenses, expired licenses, potentially stopped NAS instance, stopped server instance, and scheduled jobs. those alert types remain free, and you can create as many alerts of those types as you want. Yeah. So let me share you my screen, and I will show you a quick demo how to configure a new alert. Yeah. So hopefully you are able to see my screen now. And currently I'm in the dashboard menu of my self-provisioning portal. Now I will go to the monitoring and alerts menu. And here you can see alert style. In this alert style, you can see an option called configured alerts. And if I click on it, you can see that currently I have seven configured alerts. And you can press on any of them on the info button and see information about them and edit them if you need to make some changes. Or if you want to create a new alert, you press on the add button. You can see a description of this monitoring alert functionality, and you can find more details here. But I'll just simply show the demo how to create a new alert. So I will start by entering a name. So, for example, I want to monitor RAM for my server. So I will call it RAM usage for live. Then I have to select an alert type. And after I press on this button on select, I can see 5 standard alerts that were introduced to you last month at the top of the list, and those 4 new types are at the bottom of the list. So since I want to monitor RAM usage, I click on high average RAM usage, and I can see that new fields are shown to me. So delay, once again, this field hasn't changed. Delay is basically an option for you to not get alerted if you want for the issue to be resolved by itself. So, for example, if you're monitoring high average RAM usage and this high RAM spike occurs only, for example, for 1 minute, then it might not be a problem for you, and you only want to be alerted if this issue persists. And for example, if it remains that high for example, longer than 10 minutes. So I enter 10 in this field. And only if the RAM usage doesn't drop below your required threshold after those 10 minutes, only then you will be alerted about this issue. Next, you have to select the alert item. Alert item for these specific alert types, there are only 2 of them. You can create rules, same rules for all your application servers, or you can select a specific application server. So in this case, I will create a rule for a specific application server. I will select BC18 Live, and then I will have to indicate the threshold. So if, for example, I want to be notified when the RAM usage average RAM usage hits 80%, I enter a number 80 here. And then I have to indicate period. So since we're calculating average, and you have to basically indicate the period of which the average you want to see. So for RAM usage, the shortest period is 1 minute. But if, for example, you want the average of 3 minutes, you can enter it. You can enter 3 here. And that's basically it. Also, when you select the alert type here, you can see that there's additional message here telling you that this is a paid service. So just in case you want to know whether this alert type is paid or not, after selecting your alert type here, you can see whether there's a message about it or not. Yeah. Then there are 2 options at the bottom of this window. So I recommend you to mark the notifications enabled option so that not only an alert event is created when this issue occurs, but also your alert subscribers receive email alerts about it. So I press on save. It can take up to a few minutes for our monitoring tools to be properly set up to create those unique rules that you have just decided to create. And here you can see in the list your new configured alert. And what you also want to do is you probably want to assign alert subscribers to it. So you click on the gear button. There's an option subscribers here. And after you navigate to this page, you can see that there's a column named notify by email, and none of the subscribers have it set to yes at the moment. So you simply mark those checkboxes if you want both Alex and Megan to receive notifications about the issues related to high RAM usage in this particular application server. You press on save. And yeah, that's basically it. These users will now receive alerts if an issue occurs. And those alerts will probably look like this. So this is an alert for an inactive RDP session that was detected on this particular server. But it will look quite similar also in your email. It will show you the details of the server that has a spike in RAM usage, and also the name of the application server. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically it. And yeah. I will give my word back to Gedros, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Algirdas. So yeah, I'll be covering what's in the lab and the FAQ sections. So yeah, first of all, what are we working on in the upcoming releases? So yeah, we are still working on the SLA improvement for private SQL servers. Yeah, it has to do. We have to do some legal stuff for that. We will be working on database auto-tuning to basically, to improve the performance of the databases sometimes automatically for you without you having to do those things. And also we are looking into possibilities to provide some additional databases for you and for the customers actually to do the reporting or some additional analysis of the data. Yeah. As always, please don't forget to suggest your ideas on the portal, and don't forget to vote for the ideas. We want to see your votes, and we want to see what's on your mind, and what could be better. Good. Moving on to FAQ section. So yeah, the first FAQ, the first question that I would like to discuss today is, we actually had similar question last time, is we get an error, a SQL Server connection error when we are running a long report or something like that. We didn't have this kind of issue on our test environment. What's going on? So yeah, I want to tell that we have a safeguard we have multiple safeguards on our shared SQL servers, and we prevent very long running transactions on the servers. So basically, it's very important to stress that it's a transaction that is checked. It's not a particular query, but it's the whole transaction. So yeah, and we are checking the duration of the transaction, and we are checking the CPU consumption. If it is running for a very long time, let's say 60+ minutes, or if it's consuming high amounts of CPU, very high amounts of CPU. It's not like standard normal behavior. We have to stop those kinds of transactions. It's basically just to provide the, let's say, stability for all of the customers, because otherwise the SQL servers go crazy when those kind of transactions are being rolled back. The safeguard cannot be turned off on the the shared SQL servers, but we can, let's say, if you have a situation where you need it to be turned off temporarily for, let's say, for one-off cases, we can do that. But in general, we would ask you to basically find a way to minimize those transactions. Maybe, let's say, the queries are not optimal and therefore they are running for a very long time. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it shouldn't be a transaction, a very long transaction, something like that. So yeah, there are a lot of cases where partners found ways to avoid long-running transactions, because those long-running transactions are actually very toxic for the SQL server. Good. Another question that I would like to discuss is the performance of the system. So, yeah, what are the possible causes of the decreased performance? And as you know, there are millions of the reasons why the performance might decrease. Maybe several cases that I would like to discuss is, first of all, database indexes. I've mentioned that we will be working on automatically tuning your database, and this will include the index optimization. But you can also check the index suggestions on the portal. We provide the index suggestions in the monitoring and alerts menu. You can check which database might need, and which table might need an additional index, and what would be impact of that additional index. Also, sometimes let's say index rebuild might be needed. We are not doing it by default on the databases, but if you feel that some index might be let's say corrupt and might need a maintenance, just let us know on which table, which index you want to rebuild, or maybe you want to rebuild indexes for all of your databases, for all of your tables in the database. Let us know, and we'll work on a plan how to implement automated index rebuild for you. Another issue is network latency, and there are basically two types of network latency, I would say. It's between the client and the application server. It's especially important when you are still using the Windows client, because the Windows client is really chatty, and if you have high latency to the application server, if the client has high latency to the application server, the application doesn't feel really good. You don't feel comfortable browsing through the application. So yeah, the latency can be checked by using, let's say, azurespeed.com, a tool that can measure the latency to a particular Azure data center. It is really common, not really common, but it is common that, let's say, connections from certain countries in Europe are basically not down, but they are being slowed down for a day or something like that. So yeah, it is possible that, let's say, one day the performance, the operation of the Windows client seems to be okay, or maybe even very good, but the other day it's not really good, and it's very common that this is because of let's say country connection to the Azure data centers. Another latency issue is between the application server and the SQL server. So, and this is usually code related. So latency between the application server and the SQL server on Azure, it's not great. Let's call it like that. It can be improved, and we are constantly working on improving it. But still, it's not always the same as you have on your, or the customer has on the local network. Yes, and if the application is written in not very optimal way, it could be an issue. Let's say an example. Yeah, I don't know. A couple of weeks ago, we were analyzing a report that was running well slower, let's say, than on premises on the customer's environment. So yeah, first of all, on the customer's environment, the NAV server and the SQL server, they were running on the same machine. So basically, there's no latency, right? In that situation between the NAV server and the SQL server. Yeah, we are running, let's say, these parts, these components on separate servers. But yeah, the report was doing 213,000 queries, very simple queries to the SQL server, just to get data, just to get records, basically, yeah, and to do some calculations. Yeah, but those, let's say, to complete the report, it took 213,000 queries. And what does that mean? Well, basically, if you calculate that the latency between the application server and the SQL server is at least 1 millisecond. 1 millisecond, well, I would say that's a decent latency, yeah, and that was the case actually. But just because of the latency and the amount of the queries that the report was producing, the user had to spend additional 3.5 minutes. Yeah, just because the report was not getting all of the data at the same time. So yeah, our recommendation is to look at the queries that you are producing on the SQL server and to make the queries optimal. It's valid for not only NAV, but for any, let's say, database application. Yeah, you have to get the data in as little queries as possible, and to get as much data as it is needed, not less, not more, right, in one query, or yeah, in the amount of queries that are needed. But yeah, that kind of operation has to be optimal. Also, it's common that there's a resource usage spike. Let's say, yeah, there could be a memory leak on the NST, usually because of the incorrectly developed .NET add-ins or something like that. So there could be a memory spike, maybe some CPU heavy operation has been running on the application server, so you can check that by RDPing to the VM. If it's temporary, then yeah, most probably you just need to wait. If it's not temporary, if it's constant, then most probably something has to be done, and the resource usage has to be investigated. It's quite common that some additional applications are being run by the customers on the application server or by the partners. Let's say partner allows the customer to RDP to the virtual machine and run Power BI desktop application. Running Power BI desktop application on the same server where the NAV, let's say, or Business Central application server is running, that's not a great idea. Yeah. So yeah, maybe that kind of workload should be moved to some other application server. And yeah, if any help is needed from our side, we are not perfect as well. There could be some issues on the infrastructure. So if you don't find the issues, don't be shy to contact us. The team is here to help you. So yeah, just let us know what kind of issues you have. The more information you can provide, the better, and the team will work to find, let's say, what could be the issues for the performance decrease, and what could be the reason for the performance decrease, and how those could be solved. Good. A quick one. So do we support customer users? So yeah, 1ClickFactory supports only partner users, only partners. We work through partners only. And what happens if a customer contacts us? So where we basically forward the request to the partner. That's it. We of course ask whether some help is needed, because sometimes the queries that we get are really not infrastructure related, but application related. So yeah, but what we do, we forward those requests to the partner if we get them. Another interesting, let's say, issue we faced in the past month is the job queue entries are removed without any reason. What's happening? So actually, there is an application bug in Business Central 17 Cumulative Update 5, and also in Business Central 18 RTM release. So yeah, what you should do, basically, you should update. As Rimvidas has said, we are still waiting for Business Central 18 Cumulative Update 1 to be released. hopefully it will be released soon. But for the partners who are using Business Central 17 Cumulative Update 5, if you have this issue, most probably you have this issue, you should update to Cumulative Update 6. Yeah, the issue should be fixed there. Good. Yeah, and maybe a quick explanation about the hosting license concept. Yeah, the question comes to our support from time to time. So yeah, how do the hosting licenses work? So basically, yeah, the partners are paying for the number of users in the hosting license. They are just choosing the size of their hosting license, and then you can enable, disable users within the limits of that hosting license. You are still paying for the number of users in the hosting license. We get the question, what happens if we have, or if we enable less users than the number of users in the hosting license? So it's important to stress that you are still paying for the number of users in the hosting license, not the actual number of users in the NAV solution. Yeah, but we want to make this very clear to you. And on the portal, if your installation is underutilized, meaning that your hosting license has more users than the actual users in the database, then the installation has, let's say, an amber color. The name of the installation is in amber color. Good. And we are basically done with frequently asked questions, and we are in the Q&A section.
So, Giedrius, we have a couple of published questions. I think you could have a look about the reporting database and about the connection error.
So yeah, the question about the reporting database, yeah, so that's exactly the idea.
So Giedrius, I'm not sure if everybody sees the question.
Sorry.
Could you read that?
Okay, sorry. It seems like it's published, so I thought.
I don't know. I'm just not making sure.
Good. So yeah, the question is whether reporting analytics database is meant as a replicated database to avoid live database heavy workloads. And yes, that's exactly the main idea. We have some other ideas, but the main idea is yes, so that the customers can actually access the replicated database and do reporting, yeah, and things like that. And another question is regarding the lost connection error. What if a long-running standard procedure? We have experienced it on the adjust cost report. We run it overnight. Yeah. So unfortunately, even the standard, let's say, the standard procedures aren't perfect. Please contact us. We might find some, let's say, some workarounds how to improve that procedure. We might maybe find hardware ways to solve that issue, but also it would be good that if you could investigate on your end whether it's possible to maybe run the report more frequently, maybe on a lower subset of, I don't know, items or something like that. So yeah, it would be good to minimize it to 1 hour.
So basically, the answer is let's work together to find the solution.
The answer
Unfortunately, this is something that maybe Microsoft haven't done enough efforts to make it optimal and to make it to run it faster or better. So now it's up to us and actually the partner to collaborate and find a way how to solve that. We are always open for ideas, and well, let's have a look into that if you have the exact problem. Yep.
Yeah, and I believe there were some solutions about this report.
All right. So I don't think we have any more questions. Again, if you have questions or if the question pops up to you after the webinar, never hesitate to write an email to service@1clickfactory.com. As said, for those who don't know where the webinar of last month recording is, again, drop a mail to us and we'll send you the link. All right. So with that, I think we're coming to the end of today's webinar. Again, the next webinar, as usual, second Wednesday of each month. So June 9th, same time. Feel free to register already today to fill in your calendars. And I wish you a productive rest of the week and then see you next month. Thank you for participation.